Hello everyone. I have included excerpts from the book of the Zarathustrian Lords in some of my videos previously, but I was really feeling guided to give you all of it. When I say all of it, I don't have the whole book, but Thoth gave me a very unusual delivery in 1980s, and it was this quotes from this book that of course is lost. I mean, it's not something we have in our libraries. It's from the Akasha, but it was an actual book, maybe still is somewhere. In fact, I believe it is. It's not entirely lost, but if anyone has it, it isn't anyone I know. So I wanted to read this to you, and it's not just about reading the passages, the few passages that he gave me. He also gave me interpretations because it was written very cryptically, I guess you could say. And so he reads it to me, I'm going to say. That's why I have a picture of Thoth reading a book. We're going to sit around his cozy fire in the inner earth, and we're going to listen to Thoth read us a book. However, what he's going to read us is not warm and fuzzy. You know, it's about good and evil. And yet, as with all of the Thoth transmissions I've ever received, if he speaks about anything that's a bit dark, he always brings it into the light. He has a purpose for telling this. It's not a scary bedtime story. He's giving us an understanding of good and evil and how this works. People tend to say, you know, nowadays, oh, well, there's no such thing as good and evil. It's all, you know, the way you perceive it, and we shouldn't focus on things like that. Well, Thoth disagrees. But he also says that light always prevails if you understand the path and you know how to connect to that light. So that's what this is about. To make it more comprehensive to you, as I'm reading this, I'm going to say the book, and I'm going to quote from what Thoth gave me, and then when we get to Thoth's interpretation, I will say, and now Thoth, or Thoth's interpretation, and then I will proceed with that. He begins with quite a history and introduction of Zarathustra, Zoroaster, and his perspective on all of this, which I find fascinating, before we actually get to the reading of the passages. So let us begin. Well, I can see that I am summarizing what he told me about the introduction of it all, and then we go into the passages. So I begin here saying, our known history books tell us that Zarathustra, more commonly known as Zoroaster, was a Persian prophet and magician who lived either 660 to 583 BC or 570 to 500 BC. Some documentation gives 1400 and 1200 BC. His followers, the Zoroastrians, are seen as worshippers of divinity through the symbol of eternal fires. For the few Zoroastrians left in the world today, mostly in India, this is true. However, the religion of Zoroastrianism has been greatly diluted since the age of its birthing. While sacred fire always played a major role in the rituals of this religion, its principles are found in the conceptualization of the molten fire of the forge, wherein the Excalibur and Grail find their spirit origins. According to Thoth, Zarathustra / Zoroaster were separate incarnations of a layering of souls. Each person contained a layering of quite a lineage of souls, the same layering present in all these incarnations, although the greater spiritual power lay with the first, Zarathustra. By the age of the Zoroastrians, the etheric bonding of the planet was not stable enough to hold the full force of the Zarathustrian Lords. These lords are spoken of in the preceding message of Thoth. It is in greater part this first cycle, Zarathustra, that the message addresses. Thoth states the lost book of Zarathustrian Lords was written in only one copy by the hand of Zarathustra, as he opened his being to the archangel Samael. This copy, Thoth tells me, was originally kept in the Olai, the inner mystery temple of Zarathustra, near the Persian bottomless lake of Takht Isluman, by the rim of which the city of the royal fire once reclined. Where this temple once stood now remains only ancient ruins, but the cavern complex of Olai, hollowed into the nearby mountains, retains the eternal fires and spiritual promise of things to come. According to Thoth, the innermost truths of Zarathustra were contained within the Olai. This was not only the name of the inner temple on a physical plane, but as a spiritual habitation alive within the priests and priestesses of that place. Therefore, Olai identifies the grouping of souls as well as their inner temple. The outer manifestations of the religion did not come about until the period of the Zoroastrians, being considerably watered down for the peoples of the time. The work of the Olai was to build the spiritual power matrix for the future sacred events of major consequence, beginning with the birth, life, and death and resurrection of Jesus Christ. This spiritual power matrix was not to be in the form of the belief structure of the masses, but as an actual grid of being, fortifying the natural spirito-crystallic entity of the earth. Within the cavern complex, this infusion could manifest, grow, and await its birth age. There are several birthing points for this energy, many of which are yet to come. Throughout the Zoroastrian religion, it is taught that Zoroaster was given spiritual insights as to the nature of good and evil, each in his vision having come from distinctly separate origins. Evil did not come from good, nor did good emerge from evil. Thoth relates that Zarathustra and the lords of his multi-level embodiment came to earth as foot soldiers of a divine command of archangels to confront and destroy evil in the name of righteousness. This was still to be accomplished through the direct confrontation at specific points in the space-time continuum. In the book of the Zarathustrian Lords, Aurim Octabah, the angelic magical formula is given for the complete victory of the light in the battling of the dark forces. Understand that evil is not merely a corruption of good. While the latter is not good, it is not evil. It is ignorance hiding within its own shadow. Evil comes from the powers of Satan. Satan is the delusion of Lucifer, who in himself is not evil, but fallen or misplaced within the hierarchies of light. He is like unto a withered limb that finds animation now only in the cancerous tumor of its marrow. This cancer within that feeds from forgotten light and bleeds eternal night is embodied within the conceptual entity known as Satan, or in the more ancient pronunciation, Satan. Surely the satanic forces blossom from the budding vine of ignorance, even as it preys at the root of the tree that gives it life. But evil itself keeps its own counsel. It is not from the fruit of any vine, for no living thing, not even ignorance, is a member of its body. It is merely a delusion of existence, for it casts no shadow. This is the heart of the purpose for the emergence of the Zarathustrian Lords. In identifying the name of the beast, i.e., the mathematics incorporated into its language consciousness, so the creature can be destroyed. While corruption as a puppet of evil must be transmuted, the creature or beast of evil must be utterly dismantled, for it is not an energy faculty of spirit, nor has it ever been in any form. It is not a being or a state of consciousness, as is the host entity Lucifer. To be sure, in his fallen state, Lucifer radiates the retrograde energies of evil, but he of himself, as an angel of the Lord, is redeemable. However, there are many evil entities which are constructed from this mechanism, and without this mechanism would not exist. These entities, as powerful as they appear and indeed are, under advantageous circumstances, are but holographs of the Satanic machine. The Book of Zarathustrian Lords, given through the man Zarathustra, via his multi-entity being by the Archangel Samael, is both a text of revelations and a prophecy and a doctrine of angelic magic. Angelic magic differs from earth magic in that it contains the asterisms of the creative logos, which organize to form the aggregations of both spirit and matter in the universes. This could be compared to the zeros and ones that, in specific sequences, transfer music to a laser disc through a digitalized beam of light. While the asterisms of angelic magic are far more complex and infinitely greater in profundity, this is a simplistic comparison. Of course, remember, this was written in the 1980s, so he uses an old-fashioned, to us, comparison. Now, I ask Thoth at this moment in time, back in the 1980s, please define asterisms, and he replies, the higher definition of light particles within the atomic consciousness, which acts as a bridge linking the atomic level with the superatomic or sublime states. The Hebrew yod flames, which form their sacred alphabet, stem from the asterismic conjunctos, or rather alchemical unity of the atomic particles with reason, with divine reason, all-knowing divine mind, etc. When the first atomic bomb was exploded, this created a new branch of asterisms, mutants more or less, of the originals. These mutants formed windows in the astral plane through which a greater acceleration of Earth's consciousness toward the center of the universe is manifested. This creates a false sense of expansion in some respects, if the soul is not ready for the journey. Now we begin with the actual reading of passages from the Book of Zarathustrian Lords. And as I stated before, I will say from the book and then Thoth's interpretation, so you'll understand how the flow proceeds. Thoth suggested that in this section here, for the art, I place templates that are radiating light consciousness, full Metatronic light, so that, it kind of offsets the information vibration, and you're focusing it through the light. So you're taking this information and you're placing it into a higher light spectrum, visually, but also in frequency. Aurim, which is the Persian name for Satan, dabbed the vowels of his heated breath upon their palates, and they spat his verse as a chaos from the abyss of madness. Thoth explains this as saying, so the followers of Aurim garbled their chants into the ethers and confused them who knew not the hymns of the Most High. And yet in the midst of their fury, a shining host descended into the earth. This sublime being was to incarnate his light into the Master Yeshua, Jesus. From the book, a coming song approaches, yea, from the clouds of joy, for he who goeth not before the Lamb comes surely upon the grassy fields thereafter. Thoth explains, this passage is in reference to the emissaries preceding the Christos, making way for his presence in the life wave of earth and the new earth of those who come after him, who now, because of his passing, find abundance stretched out before them. Yet, in the evidence of things seen, this has not come to pass, for much travail is still with the earth. Such prophecies speak of those things not revealed to the flesh, hidden from the senses, presented only to those initiates who seek through the Spirit. But the time is soon approaching in which the rapture of the age shall enfold the number in man, and his glory will be upon him. From the pages of the Book of Zarathustrian Lords, the full understanding of the Antichrist is given as follows. Man will forfeit his weights and measures upon the scales of perfection until the vanquishing of the servant of the intrepid is accomplished. The servant of the intrepid, Thoth explains, is the Antichrist, the bold ego without soul, who is merely a shell for the service of the holographic powers of Ahriman, or Satan. The forfeiting of these weights and measures are balances of human will and destiny that shall not be able to function within the spectrum of the satanic might. The book, for the creature of his power is a god of dust, from whence decay issues forth. Long are the days of his lusting, lamentation, and renting of the curtain of the holy is forborne upon the children of the star, this is Israel, until all who have done him service are brought before the pillar of consciousness. And Thoth states, the truth of these words is the consequence of evil, that it must run its gauntlet before it can be quelled. There is a cycle that once begun must be completed. If it were not closed, like unto a circle, it would escape the gravity of its center to devour all. Thus the law of the universe allows it to spin down as an atomic particle decays. From this action, it closes the causal eclipse about the center of its force. It is then self-contained. Yet each of these eclipses sends out one tiny bit of matter or essence into the world to create a new spin. These are those who have done him service, not individual entities, but the particles of decay they carry. Because this passage refers to the children of the star, it is addressing specifically the coming of the Antichrist in Hitler and the suffering of the Jewish people who are chosen to carry the Grail light through the Mazur Hibaru to its prophetic conclusion. Just that last part that starts with because this passage refers to the children of the star. This was given to me by Thoth as I was preparing this material from the 1980s for this video. And I know that he wanted to emphasize what he meant by children of the star more specifically because of the current events in our times now in 2024. To continue, the book prophesies its own destruction in this passage, quote, by the hand of the deformed one shall these words pass away, yet shall the time come for the wonder of their missive to appear upon the stone. The deformed one is a twofold entity. Its greater meaning is the deforming or distorting of sacred symbols in order to infuse them with black powers. But it also refers to a man whose name was Hilliard, who last possessed the Aurim Octabah. Hilliard was an alchemist in the 9th century who labored under a physical deformity. His achievement of self-mastery was dimmed by his indecisive allegiance. often tempted to serve the darkness, he was also drawn to the light. Because he was unable to discern his true path, he was not a full initiate to the knowledges empowering the book, and thus when he opened it, the entire text turned to powder in his hands. The book further reveals that the words shall appear in the future, as it is so being fulfilled in part at this moment. Well, I'm going to pause for a moment and say I was wrong, because the book isn't somewhere in some library at this time. It apparently is only in the Akasha. In the book, it is written the names of the 5 race spirits who have yet to manifest their streaming upon the earth. From these race spirits shall come the new races, bringing the genetic 4-fold helixes into the earth domain. Since the time of the fall, mankind contains only a 2-fold helix, which stays him from receipt of the complete being. Through the Metatronic Spiral, the light molecule, the M-STRA, begins this process of receipt. Once accomplished, the 5 race spirits, or the Archii, will come into the evolutionary field of Earth's manifesting plane. These Archii are also the first race spirits, only they return as higher evolutions of their former revealed to the Earth natures. Thus, they are the Meta-Archi. Of course, I have to say now, in 2024, we see that these return Meta-Archi are probably returning in the new Earth star, or maybe, just maybe, perhaps in the phase that we're entering now of the Pyramidus Radius matrix, somewhere at the conclusion of that before we move into the new Earth state. To continue, the Meta-Archi causes the asterism's cohesion of the light molecule. And now, to quote from the book again, the alphabet Meta-Archi stretch out their fineness of silks and spin a mudra of totality. From the seed light, they gather all the songs into one shining element, bared to the forge of the sun, bathed in the pearls of the moon. Lo, the scroll of golden beams is written with the quills of their burnishing might, and set into the living pulse of the mother realm. That was a passage from the book. Understanding the nature of the light molecule embroiders its pattern of passage upon the heart of the initiate. This understanding becomes an embodiment of spiritual knowing, a nation of consciousness, which acts as one entity of will. In this contemplation, spiritual consciousness becomes guardian spirits of a high order, emanating from the individual spiritualized egos who gather as signs of one shining element to form what the Zarathustrian book calls genius. From the book, and the genius of each nation shall come from the center of the planet, visiting unto the tribal lords, who shall then become their genius and take upon themselves the tribullium, or Grail, the cup of the molten sea. This they shall consume into their flesh, and burn away that which is forsaken of spirit, receiving into their hearts the inscription in the fire. From Thoth, this passage foretells the effect of the light molecule upon the tribal lords, those persons in power upon the planet who will be ready to accept the initiation of the Grail, the incorporation of the light molecule into the body, by becoming their genius. The genius comes from the center of the planet, for it is a part of the natural world. It is the incorporating of the body of spiritualized egos who have gathered their signs from the Holy of Holies at the center of the earth, the world's creative matrix. As a genius is formed, so it offers its being to an incarnated tribal lord, and thus this spiritualized ego-created being can become a human being through a human who is ready to receive the genius consciousness. From the book, take him, the genius, into your heart, for there lodges an eternal angel to bless and receive him in your name. From Thoth, in the book of Zarathustrian Lords, the genius is the single most important vehicle in the completion of victory over evil, for an incarnated soul who has received his or her genius is the one form of being who can utterly destroy the beast. From the book, the talisman of the Master is the blood covenant. It is his suffrage of the vine, from whence the people receive their renewing grace. He who bears the talisman for all shall wear the robe of crimson and the robe of purple. From his veins the fountain is sustained, even when the well is dry. From Thoth, the talisman of the Master is again an aspect of the Grail, as it becomes a votive of blood covenant, that sacred blood within all people of the earth, which are in most instances, excluding certain advanced individuals, yet to be separated from the tinctures of defilement brought about in the fall from grace. It was Yeshua who wore both the crimson robe of the outrushing blood and the purple robe of the inrushing blood. The outrushing is the blood essence of expansion, activity, and often karmic attachment and suffering. The inrushing blood is the vehicle of the chemical blood coagulation that sustains the Grail consciousness within the atomic nature. It is the preservation and exaltation of spirit in matter. Quite literally, through the blood of the Master Yeshua, a tribal lord of the first order, the genius was accepted on an etheric level for the entire human evolution. This is the fountain that sustains even when the individualized wells are dry. The essence of the grace factor is to be found in the seemingly simplistic dogma, Jesus Christ died for our sins. As a symbol of this understanding, the colors of Zarathustra's Olai are crimson and purple. From the book, he who places himself upon the threshold of the talisman's temple holds the holy terrible. He is tried and made worthy to sit upon the seat of the perilous crossing. From Thoth, herein lies the identity of the Grail Knight Parzival, who sits upon the seat of the Siege Perilous, which is the threshold of the Grail Castle. The first try is quite a jolting experience for him, because although he is destined to sit there, he is not acting from spirit, but from the will of his ego. His second attempt, after having canonized or glorified his will through service to the Grail, he is successful. The perilous seat is the vehicle of transportation to the individual's dweller of the threshold. In the Olai chamber of Zarathustra's inner temple, there is a dark green metal stone in the center of a disc set into the floor. Through this magical apparatus, one is confronted with the Holy Terrible, the dweller of the threshold. Here the initiate must confront his innermost fears and release these apparitions of dispirited ego before he or she can proceed into the next gradient of the spiritual questing. When the seeker is victorious over his modem of horror within, the disc around the stone turns to alchemical gold, allowing him passage through the veil. From the book, in the fortress of the Horde will he be contained, that parable of Ahriman's will, who by the basest of means did live and die. Within the sealed catacomb of Vespar, his duplicity doth linger, trapped in the vault of time. So as no hand removes the clasp, nor encroached upon the seal, the evil cannot be fulfilled. From Thoth, within a fortress in this age is contained the materialized body double and satanic shadow of Adolf Hitler. It is the sum total of lesser nature that animated the Hitler being. This being no longer contained a soul as the term is understood, but instead was a fragmented consciousness of race memory only, upon which the satanic force could write its doctrine and animate to perform its will. The double of Hitler is sealed away from release back into the force field of the Antichrist. It is in effect being kept from activity. Without this layer of fragmentation, the Antichrist cannot become fully empowered once again. The current host for this emissary must first reclaim the satanic shadow held hostage within the catacomb of Vespar. The plan and fulfillment of the mission to contain the beast was accomplished by the remaining Olai of Zarathustra through the Order of the Labyrinth. While the physical body of Adolf Hitler was consumed by fire, the Ahrimanic entity harbored within the body membrane had been discharged before death through a magical process given in the Aurim Octabah, and manifested in the semi-physical form or clone within an especially designed and alchemically conductive tomb. The guards of the tomb of the beast are from among the remnant Olai. However, the tomb protects itself, as no source can penetrate its alchemy other than those initiated to it. Only the Archangel Stone, beneath the sarcophagus of Torhana, within Tor Hill, can break the seal of the tomb of the beast. This crystal of light cannot be touched by evil so long as it is lodged within its sacred place, for it is flamed by the living heart of a feminine goddess, High Initiate, whose blood holds the properties of the sapphire. Torhana's heart, still living in its suspended state, is the Grail in matter, containing the elixir of the lapis, the sapphire being. It is from Torhana's lineage that the Grail blood flows. Through the Egyptian pharaonic house of Akhenaten and the Hebrew house of David, met at this crucible by the Celtic power of Atlantis. These are powerful blood forces when fully awakened to spirit, as they were and are in Torhana. In her bosom is the seed of the race spirits of Zarathustra. She was and is the forebearer of Yeshua ben Joseph, Jesus, and Merlin. Torhana is the ultimate cup, in a living sense, of the Grail that is still within us physically on the earth. Is it difficult, then, to realize the power of the Grail consciousness within the chamber of Torhana? Only a Christed soul could dare to enter this vortex of spiritual light. Yet it is the stone of the Archangel that is the key to the lock of the vaulted beast, for within its mathematics is contained the numerics of releasing all matter-bound energies, both good and evil. As the fulcrum messenger, the Archangel Merkrael, not Michael, this is Merkrael, retrieves the codes within the 24 crystals, as Michael, the defending archangel, will accept the 25 crystals of light into his bosom, recalibrating the encoding of this lost divinity within the living lights. Until this is accomplished, the dark emissaries will continue to seek a way to gain the Archangel Stone for the present Antichrist host, and thus full empowerment of his vehicle via the transmission of the Ahrimanic double within the sealed vault of the fortress. Yet the power of the genius will prevail, and the light bearers of earth will find safe harbor in the new world awaiting them. That is the conclusion of what was given to me in the 1980s. Now I'd like to discuss this a little further. I realize that all of this sounds very Gothic, very symbolic, and in some ways it is symbolic, but it also actually happened according to what I receive in regard to the vault and the soul of Hitler and all of these things. However, it is important to understand that every point that is being discussed here has a quantum mathematical equivalent that outpictures into our realm in a way that the language can interpret it in our hearts and souls and minds. There are humans who are born for the entire purpose of their life being to instill this language, this rhythm, this consciousness into the hearts of humanity through their life, through their example, through their inspiration, but most importantly, how we interpret that life. Usually these entities, have a place in the drama of the world condition. They're elevated or placed into the spotlight in some way so that we can see them and watch their lives and accrue from that our own spiritual development, either for good or ill. And at least some of those who are here for the better angels of our experience are those who are incorporating their genius, as the text speaks about. And we shouldn't leave ourselves out of this picture because we are in the process of doing just that, incorporating our own genius. It's a process. And yet some among us will be able to fulfill it to the degree that it becomes part of the saviorship of this planet, so that it can indeed move fully from a world system 1 into a world system 2 of divine accord.